The studio was dead quiet the night Johnny Carson passed out during a live chat with Lucille Ball. No one moved. No one moved. From their living rooms, 18 million Americans saw the king of late night fall forward onto his desk and stay there. The queen of comedy was just 3 feet away and was also stuck. What happened in the next 7 minutes, though, was never shown on TV. Even though the cameras were still rolling, NBC made sure that no one would ever see what Lucille Ball did next. They hid the video. People in the crowd signed papers saying they would never talk about it again. The truth about that night has been kept secret for more than 30 years. The 19th of July, 1974. Burbank, California is home to the Tonight Show offices. It was just going to be another Friday night show. When he was 48 years old, Johnny Carson was at the top of his game. 15 million people watched him every single night. He was the best friend of the United States and put the country to bed with a smile. But Johnny Carson was actually coming apart behind that famous smile, and only a few people knew how close he was to losing it all. It wasn't even planned for Lucille Ball to be on the show that night. The person that was supposed to come had to cancel at the last minute. Lucy said yes right away when the directors called her in a panic. But at the time, no one knew this. There were other reasons for Lucy to want to see Johnny that night. She had heard from friends they both had that Johnny wasn't doing well and that he was drinking too much, working too hard, and pushing himself toward something bad. Lucy knew what the signs meant because she had been through them herself many years ago, when her life was at its worst. She wasn't just a guest at that studio, she was there as a worried friend. What happened in the next 2 hours would change their lives for good. The first thing that happened was Johnny's fall. Johnny Carson lived through that night thanks to what Lucy told him while he was lying on the studio floor. It was a secret she had never told anyone else. They promised each other that they would stay together until Lucy died. So, what did really happen after the cameras stopped? What did Lucille Ball say to Johnny Carson that made him cry out loud? Why did 2 of the most well-known people in the U.S. agree to lie about what happened that night? This story will break your heart and then put it back together again. Before we go any further, tell me in the comments where you're watching tonight. It's great to see how far this story goes. You need to know what Johnny Carson was hiding from everyone to understand what happened that night. In 1974, Johnny Carson was more than just well-known. He stood for a lot. It was more than just a talk show, The Tonight Show. It was something that millions of American families did every night. Johnny's face was more recognizable than most people's own family. America heard his words one last time before going to sleep. It looked like he did it all the time. Perfect timing, easy charm, and the ability to make any guest feel at ease while keeping the crowd entertained. Though Johnny Carson was having a terrible time behind the scenes. Joanne Copeland, his second wife, was leaving him. They fought all the time. Johnny had moved out of their room a long time ago. Laws for divorce were being made behind closed doors. Johnny couldn't show that he was under too much stress to anyone. The late-night king didn't have any trouble with his marriage. That wasn't in the picture. Then there was the drinking. Johnny had always liked 1 or 2 drinks after the show, but in 1974, he drank at least 1 bottle of alcohol every night. He had to have it to sleep. There was a voice in his head that kept telling him he was fake. Everyone would find out one day that he wasn't as cute or smart as they thought. That everything he had worked so hard to build would fall apart. 3 months ago, his doctor had told him to be careful. His blood pressure was too high to be safe. That his heart was under a lot of stress. The medical experts. Those exact words were scary. Johnny, you need to slow down. If you don't, your body will shut down, and you might not get another shot. He didn't bother Johnny. He was going too fast. He was needed on the show. And NBC needed him. The U.S. needed him. He told himself that, anyway. It was easier and harder to tell the truth. Without the show, without the applause, and without the approval of millions of people every night, Johnny Carson didn't know who he was. It scared him more than a heart attack to think about what he would do without acting if he stopped. On the other side of town, Lucille Ball was getting ready for what she thought would be a simple TV show. Lucy was already famous when she was 63 years old. Television had never been the same after I Love Lucy. She had made a huge business out of it. She had lived through the public end of her marriage to Desi Arnaz. She changed so many times that no one could keep track. However, Lucy had her own hidden pain, a part of her life that she had never told anyone about. No one has asked her about her children, her present husband, or her many years in the public eye. That night, Lucy had to see Johnny for some reason she couldn't fully explain. When they called to ask her to fill in for the guest who had to cancel, she knew in her heart that she should say yes. Her gut told her that Johnny needed her. She had no idea how right she was. There was a strange feeling Lucy couldn't get rid of as her car pulled up to the NBC offices that night. She felt like something important was about to happen. There was nothing funny about the night she was about to have. It was the most important night of her whole career. Around 11:30 p.m., the studio was filled with the background music from The Tonight Show. When Johnny Carson came out from behind the famous rainbow curtain, the crowd cheered loudly. Then he smiled and waved before sitting down behind the desk. For the millions of people watching at home, he looked just like he always did, sure of himself, calm, and in charge. However, Lucille Ball saw something behind the scenes. Not the same on the screen. She got closer to the TV and looked at Johnny's face. His skin was very light, almost gray. Even with makeup, he couldn't hide the dark bags under his eyes. He did have a smile, but it looked fake and like it was put on. This man was someone Lucy had known for more than 20 years. When Johnny Carson was going off script, she knew it, and right now everything about him told her that something was very wrong. Welcome to Lucille Ball, the one and only. Lucy took a deep breath, smiled for the camera, and walked out on stage. The crowd went crazy. For Lucy, they always did. The way she waved and kissed made her perfect as America's favorite redhead. He was always in her eyes, though. As she walked up to him to say hello, as she always does, she made up her mind. Her hug was longer than normal, and she told him something in his ear. "John, I'm here. I am here for you tonight for anything you need." His body was tight, she could feel it. He lost his cool for a split second. His eyes were wet when they broke apart. It was gone in an instant, and he motioned for her to sit down. The interview then began. Things went pretty well for the first 20 minutes. Lucy talked about the early days of TV, how crazy it was to film I Love Lucy in front of a live audience, and the time she set fire to her costume during a sketch but kept acting anyway. People in the room laughed. Johnny was amused. Everything looked fine. But Lucy was keeping a close eye on him. While she talked, she saw that he kept rubbing his left arm without meaning to. She saw that he answered a half-second too slowly. How the studio lights couldn't explain why he was sweating so much. He lost his train of thought twice in the middle of a quest. Both times, Lucy stepped in with a joke and covered for him so well that no one in the crowd noticed. She was scared as she carried him. Around the 35-minute mark of the conversation, Lucy began to talk about a terrible pie fight scene. That night was the first time Johnny really laughed. Not a show, but a real laugh. Lucy felt calm for a moment. Then his face changed. He put his hand on his chest. His face became more serious. Even more of the color left his face. "Johnny?" Lucy asked in a light voice, but her heart was beating fast. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" "Fine," he answered, but his voice was rough. "Just a little heartburn. Ed's been making me eat at that awful deli again," she said. People in the room laughed. Ed McMahon. People watched and laughed. Lucy didn't believe a word of it, though. That look was something she had seen before. That gray friend with the hand on the chest. It was on her dad's face the night before he died, 30 years ago. She made up her mind. After this story was over, she would do something to get Johnny off the stage, like call for a commercial break. But she missed the chance. After 5 minutes, Lucy was finishing up a story about her grandkids. When Johnny leaned forward to ask another question, everything went wrong. The focus in his eyes went away. His body moved. He had such a tight grip on the desk edge with his left hand that his fingers turned white. He opened his mouth to say, "Johnny," but nothing came out. Then, in front of 18 million people, Johnny Carson fell forward onto his desk. The sound his microphone made when he fell was awful, and the studio was totally and utterly silent. But what Lucille Ball did in the next 7 minutes would be kept secret from the public for more than 30 years. It would also reveal a truth about Lucy that no one had seen coming. Not a single thing moved for 3 endless seconds. People in the crowd were frozen in their seats, not sure if this was a joke or something more serious. People were waiting for Johnny to come back, smile, and say something funny, but Johnny didn't do anything. He was lying on his desk, slouched and not moving at all. He dropped his coffee cup and it got all over his notes. His mic was still making a lot of noise because of echo. Then Lucille Ball did something that made everyone in the room gasp. She didn't scream. She wasn't frozen. She didn't wait for someone else to take charge. The woman who had been making people laugh for 40 years got up, walked around the desk, and took charge of the scariest moment in the history of The Tonight Show. "Please call a doctor right away." It was like a knife through the quiet when she spoke. This wasn't the friendly, fun Lucy that people in America knew. This was the voice of a woman who had built a huge TV business. A strong woman who didn't break down when everything else did. She bent down next to Johnny's chair, untied his tie, and made sure he was breathing. His chest was barely moving up and down. Short, rough breaths. His face was almost white after going from gray to it. "Hey, Johnny, can I talk to you?" "Johnny." He moved his eyes around, but they didn't open. Lucy looked at the people in the room. 300 people were shocked and looking at her. She told everyone to be quiet. Her voice was steady, strong, and in full charge. "We need to be alone and have peace. Help is on the way. Do not move from your places." They did what they were told. People paid attention to Lucy's words. It said she had this. Something that said, "Trust me." Ed McMahon ran over, shocked. "Lucy, what should we do?" "Get the medical staff right now and tell the control room to turn off the feed." A few seconds later, the technical difficulties card showed up on TVs all over the United States. 18 million people were watching Johnny Carson when all of a sudden they were stuck on a still picture and didn't know what happened. But the cameras kept rolling inside the studio. The tape recorders kept going. Later that night, this footage was meant to be destroyed, but one copy made it out alive. What it caught would remain one of the best-kept secrets in television. Lucy stayed with Johnny. She put